can't ignore it. Sometimes I wish I could.
Sometimes I want to punch you in your perfect teeth.
What if we told you that even Red Skull's pawn, the fake Nomad himself, could end up being played by Chris Evans again, just not as the Captain America we know? There's a theory floating around that a Nomad variant from another world could appear in the main MCU timeline, and honestly, it's not as far-fetched as it sounds, because in Marvel Comics, there were actually Nomads from other worlds. So maybe the MCU could explore something similar, maybe even in a standalone Nomad project someday. Let's dig into everything we know about Captain America's time as Nomad and see how that could fit into the bigger MCU picture. Ever since his comic debut, when he literally punched Adolf Hitler on the cover of Captain America Comics a year before the US entered World War II, Steve Rogers has always been more than just a hero in a costume. Captain America has always stood for something political. His stories have constantly explored what America means, not just the dream, but also the messy reality behind it. And sometimes those two sides clashed hard. Back in 1974, during a time when the real world was filled with distrust after the Watergate scandal, writer Steve Englehart decided to give Steve Rogers his own crisis of faith. In that storyline, Captain America discovered that the leader of the evil group he'd been fighting, the Secret Empire, was actually a powerful US government official. That revelation shattered everything Steve believed in. He couldn't stand for the government anymore, but he also couldn't turn his back on helping people. So, he became something new. Nomad, the man without a country. Even though Steve eventually returned to his Captain America mantle, he never forgot what that period meant. The Nomad name itself lived on too. Over time, several other people took up that identity, carrying forward the same spirit, that sense of being a wanderer, someone who doesn't quite fit in but still feels the need to protect others. And for die-hard Marvel fans, Nomad's legacy runs deep. When Captain America Civil War ended, Steve Rogers had already started living like a man without a country, just like his comic counterpart after the Secret Empire arc. He dropped the shield, stepped away from the system, and operated on his own terms. Even in Spider-Man Homecoming, there's a sly reference that the world now saw him as a traitor, someone who abandoned his post as Captain America. The Russo brothers, who directed Avengers Infinity War, were careful not to call him Nomad outright, but they did admit that Steve's arc in that movie carried the spirit of that character. They wanted him to question authority again, to face the same moral gray zone he did in the comics. But here's what many casual fans might not know. There wasn't just one Nomad, there were 6 of them in total. Everyone knows multiple people have carried Captain America's shield, Bucky Barnes being the most famous, but not everyone realizes that the Nomad title has its own little lineage too. The people who became Nomad were all different, some men, some women, but what united them was that shared feeling of being out of place. They were all trying to do the right thing in a world where they didn't always belong. Now here's the fun part. 2 of those Nomads weren't even from Earth 616, the main Marvel universe. That's where the idea of a Nomad variant really starts to make sense. Rebecca Rikki Barnes, the 4th person to take the name Nomad, came from a totally different Earth, the 3rd Counter-Earth, created by Franklin Richards, the son of Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman. Franklin made this alternate reality to hide several heroes from the villain Onslaught. On that world, Rikki became Bucky to that universe's Captain America. When her reality collapsed, she somehow found herself stranded in Earth 616, a world where she technically shouldn't exist because her grandfather never had kids there. Then there's the 5th Nomad, a kid from Dimension Z, an eerie experimental world created by Arnim Zola, where time and space don't work like they do here. It's wild to think that even in the comics, being a Nomad often meant being literally from another world. So if Marvel Studios ever wanted to bring back Chris Evans, doing it through a multiversal Nomad wouldn't even be that much of a stretch. But let's rewind for a second, because before Rikki and the Dimension Z Nomad, there were others who carried the name. And funny enough, 2 of them actually started out as Bucky first. Jack Monroe was the 2nd Bucky, a young man adopted by William Burnside, the 2nd Captain America. The 2 used an imperfect version of the super soldier serum, which ended up driving them insane. They were eventually frozen in suspended animation. Years later, Steve Rogers helped rehabilitate Jack, and Jack became the 2nd Nomad with Steve's encouragement. Then came Rikki Barnes, who, like we said, carried the Bucky name in her world before eventually becoming Nomad herself. There's even a fun story involving Hawkeye. After the events of Secret Empire, when Steve was questioning everything, Hawkeye decided to give him a bit of perspective in his own chaotic way. He disguised himself as a fake hero called the Golden Archer and attacked Steve just to prove a point. Anyone can change their identity and become someone new. That encounter inspired Steve to design his Nomad costume. So, in a weird way, we can thank Hawkeye for Nomad even existing. Now, Steve's Nomad look had one not-so-great feature: the cape. Before Edna Mode made no capes a meme in The Incredibles, Steve Rogers had already learned that lesson the hard way. His first Nomad costume had a long, flowing cape that looked cool until he started tripping over it in the middle of fights. He eventually ripped it off in frustration, and most Nomads after him ditched the cape completely. Interestingly, even though Nomad's name carries so much symbolic weight, Steve only used it for 5 comic issues, from Captain America number 180 to 184. That's it. But that short arc changed him forever. During that time, he realized that being Captain America wasn't about serving a government, it was about representing an ideal, what America should be. So when he picked the shield back up, it was with renewed purpose. Of course, not every Nomad lived up to that ideal. The second man to take the name, Edward Ferbel, didn't last long. He was a down-on-his-luck actor recruited by Red Skull himself to play a fake Nomad, basically as bait to lure the real Captain America into a trap. Unsurprisingly, things didn't go well. Red Skull got tired of him, and Ferbel was killed off within a few issues. Ironically, his death ended up helping Red Skull more than his life ever did, since people blamed Captain America for not saving him. Jack Monroe, on the other hand, had the longest and roughest run as Nomad. His childhood was brutal. His parents were Nazi sympathizers, and after accidentally exposing them, he was sent to foster care before being adopted by Burnside. After recovering from his brainwashing, he tried to make something of himself, becoming one of Steve's most loyal allies. But his story didn't end happily. After being revived and manipulated by government agents, Jack's mind and body both began to deteriorate. Eventually, he was killed by the Winter Soldier. So, could we really see Nomad in the MCU someday? It's definitely possible. The comics already gave Marvel plenty of groundwork to build on, from multiversal wanderers to alternate reality heroes trying to find their place. And if they do bring back Steve Rogers, this might be the most meaningful way to do it. Because in the end, Nomad isn't just another costume or code name. It's a symbol for those moments when a hero has to step away from the system and decide who they are on their own terms. And that, more than anything, might be what the MCU needs right now. And that's that for today's video, folks. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in our next video.